So last year, V Rising came out. Actually, it entered early access, but it quickly became one of my favorite games of 2021. But without any new content, the game kind of slowly fell out of the rotation. It started to gather dust in my Steam library. Now, I wanted to explore more of this world, and I wanted to continue building my vampire, but I had done all that I could. I unlocked everything, I built my castle, and at that point, I just kind of ran out of stuff to do. But that was in the past, right? The future is now, and that future contains a new blog from Stunlock Studios that has announced a new free expansion coming to the game in May. And this is huge news because it adds more build depth, potentially legendary weapons, the ability to add multiple floors to your castle, and some pretty big overhauls. So let's get into it, starting with jewels. Now, jewels are a new type of item that can be used to strengthen and modify spell powers. You can find these out in the world by killing standard units, by killing V-Blood units, opening chests, and once you have one, you can slot it into your spells to modify how those spells will work. And for those on PvP servers, slotted jewels will not be dropped on death, but if they are in your inventory, you will drop them. Now, only one jewel can be equipped for each ability, so give them a look, figure out the best combination for your playstyle, and you're probably asking, okay, Vulkan, what are some examples? How powerful are these jewels? What do they do exactly? Well, luckily, Stunlock has helped us out and gave us a couple screenshots to give us a little bit of an idea. So first is Yearning Bauble, and this is attached to Shadow Bolt. This is going to cause that spell to explode on hit and inflict leech on nearby enemies. Now, Malignant Claw will cause corpse explosion to inflict agony on targets affected by Condemn and also trigger secondary explosions. Then we have Lunar Moon, which causes your Spectral Wolf to consume Weaken to spawn a Healing Wisp. So as you can see, each jewel will have different tiers, which I'm guessing changes the values on the jewel, but honestly, we aren't quite sure yet. So jewels are going to give us a little bit more customization for our builds. That's what we need to know. This is something that's very welcomed, but let's keep this thing moving and talk about some of the overhauls to spell schools. So as a recap, for those of us who haven't played V Rising in quite a while, in V Rising, there are 5 schools of magic. There are Blood, Unholy, Illusion, Chaos, and Frost. Now, the devs have rethought through the schools, and they decided to add some debuffs to targets. And these debuffs are going to benefit from stacking spells from the same school. So if you want Unholy debuffs, you stack Unholy spells. If you want Blood, you stack Blood. We'll get into the debuffs here in a minute, but that's sort of how this thing works. Now, they also reorganize some of the spells into different schools where they can sort of have a little bit bigger impact. Things that sort of fit that school a little bit better. So to get us started, let's talk about Blood. So in Blood, all of your spells now apply Leech to enemies, which is going to heal you over time. They moved Purgatory, which was an unholy AoE spell, into the Blood tree, and this now sets down an explosive magic circle that'll heal allies and damage enemies. Now for Unholy, spells will apply a debuff that'll amplify the damage on the target, and if that target dies, it'll resurrect as an undead skeleton minion. Now the Spectral Assassin from the Illusion tree has moved into Unholy as a Death Knight. For Chaos, the Chaos Burn Ignite debuff will be back. This thing deals damage over time. It was one of the things I liked most about the Chaos Bolt ability. Now, they are changing some of these skills to be more offensive in the Chaos tree, and they're also improving the area of effect to deal damage to groups instead of focusing on single target. So for those of you who really like Chaos like myself, we're going to have a little bit more AoE instead of everything being precision cast. Then for Illusion, these spells will apply Weaken to enemies, causing them to deal less damage. But you as a caster will also gain a buff called Phantasm that'll increase your chance to bypass skill cooldowns and give you free casts, which is always great. Free stuff is always better. Now, they're also going to be adding new crowd controls ability like Fear, and then also the spells Mosquito and Crimson Aegis have been moved into the Illusion tree to give another summon and a shield. And then lastly is Frost. Now, Frost will still apply Chill to slow targets, and Chill will now affect V-Blood units, so it's much more effective in boss fights. Before, it wasn't really that great, so that's something to kind of keep note of, is now we can actually bring this to the table and slow down bosses. Now, there hasn't been any note on any spells being moved into this tree, just the kind of update to Chill. Now, they also gave shields. Remember, we have Crimson Aegis, we have Ward of the Damned, we have all of these different shields in the game. And they gave these shields a little bit extra oomph. So you're now able to recast the shield while it's still up, and this is going to send out a projectile. So Chaos Barrier is going to send out a Chaos Bolt, Ward of the Damned is going to send out a wave of unholy energy, and Frost Barrier is going to cast a Cone of Cold in front of you. Now, they also teased a new 6th spell school coming in the free expansion. No hints, but this is pretty awesome to hear. And this gives us a good opportunity to kind of theory craft a little bit as to what do you think it is. So drop a comment below. What do you think the 6th spell school is going to be? And just as a recap, remember we have Blood, Unholy, Chaos, Illusion, and Frost. Those are the ones we have so far. So drop a comment below. Let me know what you think that 6th one is. Now, to wrap up spells, they also gave spellbooks an overhauled look. And here are some examples. This looks much better than it did previously, a little bit more detail, a little more depth. So I like it. Now, if you're like me and you love legendary loot, the loot in V Rising is good, but honestly, there's a lot left to be desired. And it was one of the few points in the game that I really was like, man, I really wish they would do something differently with this. Well, luckily, they are experimenting with legendary weapons that can be found out in the world. And interestingly enough, these will come with randomized benefits. Now, this is interesting because typically legendaries or uniques, they have set benefits, but maybe they roll in range or something like that. They're typically set. This is going to be randomly rolled. So maybe you'll get, like a Sword of the Kingdom and it has different benefits than another Sword of the Kingdom. I'm not entirely sure. And they said they're still testing. They even went as far to say that it might even be a scrapped system. So we'll have to wait and see how their testing goes. This is internal testing. And hopefully it goes well because honestly, this game could benefit from having legendary gear. Now, the last big chunk they revealed were territories. Now, territories are a way for vampires to claim individual plots of land instead of placing a castle heart and expanding tile by tile. And they believe that this will help in a few different ways. So one, they believe it'll allow you to fit more players in the world in a more balanced way, which we believe will benefit the lifetime of a populated server. They want to reduce player friction. This will prevent players from blocking each other's bases from reaching the road, whether accidentally or intentionally. And it'll also prevent players from settling on the same, quote, plateau or predefined space and learning eventually that they don't have enough space to build properly. Then also it's going to help prevent various technical issues like vampires being able to land on unclaimable ledges, clans building castles just to buffer their main castle, or building armies of servants to defend. And then lastly, it'll make detecting and communicating how full or active a server is a bit easier, which is great. So good on them. I think this is an interesting change. I'll see how they actually want to implement this. This is all we know so far. And I'm curious to see if this is going to be preset in terms of if you have to claim a territory and then that territory is yours. And so instead of it being freeform where you can set up stuff wherever, instead you're kind of cordoned to certain parts. I'm not entirely sure, but it'll be interesting to see. Now, they believe this is going to help set the stage for new systems for things like servant-to-player interactions, new missions, invasions, new spy missions, territory bosses that you'll have to slay in order to claim certain pieces of land. So all things like that. More content is always better, so I'm up for it. Now, they did wrap up the blog post by stating that they'll have a lot more content planned and that the game should be feature complete by 2024 and that year 2023 is the year of the vampire. So again, very curious to see what they actually do with this game outside of this free expansion coming because they claim to have a ton more planned. Now, to me, this content update sounds great. It checks quite a few boxes to improve areas that I think were lacking. Things like improved build customization and diversity, expanding the catalog of skills that are actually viable, adding new randomized items to chase that are both jewels and potentially legendary weapons, and adjusting the way territories are claimed so that it leads to less toxicity and a more fair approach to castle building. All of those things sound awesome, and hopefully V Rising delivers and they don't drop the ball, but honestly, we'll have to wait and see. So guys, that's what I think about this whole thing, but let me know what you think in the comment section below. Are you going to come back and check out V Rising? Have you moved on to other games? Let me know. As always, thank you so much for watching. This has been Vulkan, and I'll talk to you guys next time.